Grinners, if you'd like to see this full show and watch live in future, click the link below and sign up now for LNG Gold. Enjoy the video. All right, let's move briskly along here. The August 16th, 2024, Friday Night SmackDown. This was suggested by Mr. Big Dude, who I also believes in the chat. It is, of course, the infamous, frankly, critically acclaimed DIY Street Profits match. This was the final of a tag team tournament that, as we know, broke my brain a few weeks back. This was, of course, the week the week after the semi-finals, where DIY toppled pretty deadly and Street Profits beat A-Town Down Under, which were both very, very fine matches, but for some reason irritated me. I don't really know why. I've not figured it out yet. I'll get there eventually. Many of you will know that Ebu has been kind of bullying me about this match for some time. He publicly called me out on Worldwide and declared that this was, in fact, better than the AJ Styles Randy Orton King of the Ring quarterfinal match, I believe it was, or round of 16 match, one or the other. And the reality is, contrary to popular belief, I was always pretty aware this would actually be a good wrestling match. It seemed unlikely to me that it wouldn't be, really. I'm pretty big on the Street Profits, and DIY are more than capable of good wrestling matches, especially with a team as dynamic as this one. But, bits are more important, and I'm also protesting SmackDown until AJ Styles returns. So these are the games we play. I would like to note before we get into this that on their way down to the ring, it was explained that B-Fab has made the difference when it comes to the Street Profits form. And I don't follow it as closely as some of you guys might, so feel free to help me out on this, but that sounds like one of the most insane claims that any commentator has ever made, honestly. And I say that respectfully, B-Fab. Is there any evidence of this? What is the shift in form? Is she given team talks? Have I missed detail work here on the TV? These are the questions I have. Please tell me, folks. I was not aware. In addition, while we're on the topic of announcers, Johnny Gargano appears to be described here as the Mechanical Marvel, which is a great nickname and is the kind of thing that I would use for Dax the Axe, and I probably am going to steal for that kind of purpose. But Johnny Gargano felt like a shot at me. Corey Graves, we are watching you. Now, I've had my fun. Let's just pull the Band-Aid off. Folks, this is a very good wrestling match. A very good wrestling match indeed. It's very obvious. The motivation is pretty palpable from the bell here. The lads go out there with the intention of having a takeover match, basically. They have about 15 minutes. I do need to know that what the biggest issue this match has, unfortunately, is completely out of its own hands, which is that it is on SmackDown, which means it's on Fox, which means in that 15-minute match, you're getting 2 ad breaks, 3-segment match across 15 minutes. It really limits your ability to get a feel. And that was the same issue, to be clear, folks, that AJ and Randy had in the King of the Ring match, the aforementioned King of the Ring match. It's just difficult. So yeah, that's one thing I would say as like a criticism. I guess it wouldn't be fair to frame it that way, but that's one of the issues this match has, especially with how much stuff they're doing. But it is a huge, big time crowd pleaser. They basically throw out and erase all the formalities, throw out the rule book, and swing for the fences and go nuts. And it works a treat. It doesn't have a ton of stuff in terms of idea work that you can sink your teeth into. It's not trying to, really. It's a thriller, which is fine by me. I will say, to their credit, as all babyface matches should, it does start with just straight up wrestling. A clean wrestling match. I believe it's Gargano and Ford that sets the stage in that regard. And another thing I really liked, they do the sort of the thing you see a lot now. Jerry Lee and Rob Van Dam do, the well-scouted deal, sequence, stare, sequence, stare, that kind of vibe, which is familiar, but these are the games we play, and it's well executed. One of the things that really stood out with this matchup is DIY obviously have very creative wrestling minds, and they're good at those little sequencing, those nifty back and forth combinations. The reason it works, I think, especially well in this match is because the Street Profits are so explosive that they ensure there's a certain amount of connective tissue and punch to the ideas. And I don't say that to take away from DIY's mechanics to cite Corey Graves because they're there, but I just think it's more tightly pulled together because the profits have a certain like oomph to them. Speaking of such, credit to all four guys. The way they position Angelo Dawkins in this match is great. And there should always be room for this. When there's a bigger guy in the team, positioning them as a game changer, as a difference maker is key. He does that here. After that sort of Van Dam, Jerry Lynn spot I was just talking about, Dawkins immediately comes in and changes the match. And it establishes a contrast. DIY don't have a big man, right? And that's just a small thing you can do to add some color, create a contrast between two babyface teams. Now, after that, they kind of charge ahead and they kind of position DIY as the babyfaces for a minute. This is where the ads become a problem because we return to a Gargano hot tag and we're kind of left to piece together. It actually kind of works in the match's purpose in the sense that you're not forcing babyface profits to get heat, take control segments. So I guess in that way it kind of works, but it's hard for a rhythm point of view. And even beyond Gargano's hot tag, they follow that with a moment where Ciampa's like cornered outnumbered. And again, they kind of lean them in that direction, which I think makes more sense stylistically with Dawkins' size and honestly, even Montez Ford's sides for that matter. I think it makes sense. DIY would be an unnatural fit as the in-ring heels here. So that makes sense to me. And then you go into the kind of big time offense, right? The bombs, so to speak, or their equivalent of bombs with the big tandem moves. You get a zigzag from Montez Ford, which was called as such, which did pop me. You got a sham machine, which I know DIY have been doing a lot. They do a cool deal where they build to a little set piece where it goes back to Gargano and Ford. He goes all the way back to the start with that, where they're like kind of the last guy standing. They do like simultaneous dives, and then contrasting to what they did at the start of the match, they trade bombs and fisticuffs, so on and so forth. So that was a nice idea. There's a second ad that follows like a false finish, which is, again, tough deal. But man, they really do push a pace here. I seriously, I have no intention of being snarky about it. I actually thought it was very good. They layer the false finishes. They have a couple big saves. The place is going nuts for this, which is an example kind of how simple these things can be. DIY have not had an easy time getting these live crowds to react to them. But then, you just kind of let them do a DIY match on TV, and it's like the crowd will probably go on board with that. It works, So, and there's a lesson in that. Probably this Orlando crowd is going absolutely nuts, and it's a big crowd. It goes without saying. Content-wise, there isn't a ton that blows my mind, but again, it's nicely done. It's well placed, and I think there is a lesson here in terms of. I guess this is a different conversation, maybe for another day, but. Partly this match is assisted by the fact that the traditional WWE tag match is very familiar and very straightforward in its structure. And that may sound like a backhanded compliment. I actually don't mean it as one. What I mean is sometimes you have to establish a pattern and you have to be kind of disciplined in maintaining that pattern in order to allow matches like this to pop. If every match looked like this, I don't know how long it stands out. I think we've learnt that lesson elsewhere, especially, the NXT days that this is kind of traced back to. I think you see that, actually, the impact of that. But in this setting, the NXT TakeOver match, even in kind of bite-sized form, it's kind of jarring. It kind of stands out. It's striking, right? So I think that's an interesting kind of conversation about house style and the way it can affect the quality of a match. We often talk, obviously, extreme example. We've talked before and hanging with Hulbert about, how much of a kind of how crazy Savage and Steamboat came off at WrestleMania 3 and how that is partly paired with how different their product was to the one that Steamboat had classic matches beforehand in. It's setting makes a big difference in that regard. Again, extreme example, folks. But I don't know if people are going to be talking about this in 30 years. But my point is, while the style doesn't blow my mind and isn't new to me, I think you'd be surprised how much of the audience hasn't seen a tag match like this on a TV for quite some time. So that's an interesting element to this. But look, ultimately, folks, it's a fireworks show. It's super exciting. It's 15 minutes with the ads. So, God, you probably get like 9 minutes of it here. I recommend this. This is very, very fun. Probably the best DIY match in quite some time. And the profits also, I'd imagine, probably since the Usos Money in the Bank match from a couple of years back, which was a hoot also. So very, very strong. Did not surprise me that it was good, but it did surprise me how much the live crowd liked it. And it kind of made me think about psychologically, the lessons to be learned in that. So a very good tag match. I recommend for anyone who's missed out. I'm a few weeks late to it, but yeah, it's worth the hype. It's very, very fun. Very, very fun indeed.